Okay, so setting the tone here, this is Leith Anderson with Bobby Grace at his workshop, and one of the great stories is how Bobby Grace got started making putters and how he had probably the biggest day in putter sales history. So why don't you go ahead? Let's tell that Nick Price story.
I will. I love to relive it because when I was on tour for a couple of years, what was interesting was I was making blade putters because I was sort of taught by the TP Mills and the Tad Moores of the world. The blade putters were milled, welded on necks, hand stamped, high polished, gun blued. They were gorgeous. I even got Arnold Palmer in play with that type of putter, the original gun blued handmade thing. So it was working. All of a sudden, after 2 years, I was losing some guys to a mallet. And once a guy goes to a mallet on tour, you can't walk up to him with a new blade and say, "Hey, can you try this?" Because they go, "No, I'm putting with a mallet." You can't go from a mallet to a blade. Back then, they would not do it. That happened to me with Nick Price. I made him a handmade blade putter in '93. And by the time I got it done 4 months later, I came up to him and he was putting with a mallet. He switched from a blade to a mallet, and I looked at it and went, "Oh." I said, "I got no shit." He wouldn't even hit a putt with it. He says, I don't want it. I'm putting with a mallet. I think he went to a Ray Cook M1X or something before he went to the Zebra. So I went home with my tail between my legs, and I went to the drawing board and I said, "I'm going to make a mallet." And I didn't know how long it was going to take me or what it was going to take to get it done. But I was, as you remember, Leith, we talked all about my history of, I know all the old stuff. I had a collection of Zebras. I knew the M1X was a great putter. That was a Ray Cook putter. There was a Mocat I really liked that had the stair step on the back. There was a number of mallets that I really appreciated some of the design traits in. And then the most interesting thing is when I started to put all the design traits together, which this is what ended up was the Fat Lady putter. But I got to tell you the story of the metal that was chosen for this and why. My teacher at 8 years old, I was fortunate enough to have a Ryder Cup captain, a prior Ryder Cup captain, Skip Alexander, as my teacher. And I was winning golf tournaments 15 months later at 9.5 years old, and I went on a tear. So we were fortunate at Lakewood Country Club to have Skip. Well, Skip was one of the, as you can imagine, 1951 Ryder Cup captain. He could play golf. He's on the Hogan, Snead, Nelson, Middlecoff. I mean, all the greatest in the world he was on the team with. He was taken out with a plane crash. That's a long story. I won't go there, but that's why most people listening to this video go, "Skip Alexander, who's that?" It's Buddy Alexander's dad from Florida, U.S. amateur champion in '86 at Shoal Creek. It's an amazing story. However, I went to Skip when I was designing the putter, and I said, "Skip, what metal, or what is the best feeling putter you've ever had?" And immediately he said, the Tracy Parks Blue Goose. Well, if you remember the Blue Goose as a Ray Cook putter, a black gun blue, that's many years later. In the 40s, there was a mallet putter, and I have two of them in my glass case here. I'm going to pull one out in a second because this is the most untold story ever, and it has to do with the Fat Lady. I asked Skip that, and I just knew what the answer was going to be because I grew up with a guy that used to beat my father when he came into town, and my dad finally beat him in the club championship one time in '56. And his name was George Fisher, and he putted with one of Skip's old Blue Gooses. And Skip gave him the Blue Goose and said, "If you ever stop using it, I want it back." It's one of those stories, and he never got it back, and he was furious about it. So I heard about this putter for years, Blue Goose, the Blue Goose. But it was not worth anything. Nobody knew anything about it. It wasn't worth anything because the people weren't educated. You know, they forgot all about one of the dominating putters in the 40s was the Blue Goose. So I started advertising around the country for the Blue Goose putter and other things, and I drummed up about 5 or 6 of them. I got one, and I sent it off to the Beryllium Foundry in Athens, Tennessee, to cut part of the neck off it to tell me and analyze it with a metallurgist exactly what metal it was. He comes back and he says, "Well, it's 356 sand cast aluminum. And it's got a lot of floor scrap in it. So they were sweeping it up off the floor and remelting it and pouring it. It was a great story. So I went to the guys in St. Pete, Suncoast Non-Ferrous Castings, and I said, I need to borrow your pattern maker. I've got an idea of what shape I want. Long story short, I made it out of the Blue Goose metal, and it is the softest metal for a putter you can have. And we put the triplane sole because I liked the Callaway idea, yet I couldn't do the exact. I wanted to do 3 planes. And then what I did was the heel and toe weighting was lead, because I knew heel and toe from the Karsten Solheim years and all that. I wrote a little booklet on collecting rare ping putters. So I learned the inertia was important with the heel and toe. Well, this triplane sole, the heel and toe, the milled face, the soft metal, the stair-step design. This one here, we later put sightlines in it, but the first 250,000 of them had no sightlines. We sold 350,000 of these. It was a lot. Well, so here I am. I get this putter on. I've got 12 done. I ran 100 with the Sandcast guys, but I didn't even get but 12 done. My wife says, you better get on the tour, because every time you try to make something, Cameron's ahead of you. And that's what she said. And it was true. He was thinking along the same lines on a few designs. He was amazing. So I said, okay. I'd get right back out on tour, and it was a FedEx St. Jude Classic in July of '94. And I wasn't going to go tackle Nick Price. He just won Turnberry's Open Championship, okay? And he's not #1 player in the world yet, but he's heading there. So you don't go running up the guy, you need to switch putters. I know you just won the Open, but so I was very gun-shy there. How I got into Nick's bag is amazing, because I'm working with Davis Love III on a couple of other designs I'd make, and he's going like, this is amazing. And Davis went into play at the FedEx St. Jude Classic. Most people don't know that. It was a beryllium copper KBI Scottsdale. It was just like a Scottsdale answer. So he says to Nick, coming over to the range, from the range to the putting green, because he saw the fat lady putter, and he said, well, you got to show this to Nick. And I'm not going to walk up to Nick. He might, actually, he was a wonderful guy. He would never do anything mean to you. But so Davis Love calls out to Nick, you got to come over and see the. And so I said, oh my God, I ran over and got the fat lady putters, and then Davis yells to me and says, and bring over anything else you think I might like. In other words, he's just really doing me a solid. And that's how I got Nick Price. He comes up, putts, he takes this putter, he looks at it and he says, oh, he hits a couple of taps with it, and he feels how soft it is. This is what he was trying to get Ram to make for him, and they wouldn't do it. He gets up about 12 feet away from the cup, uphill, up the hill. He was putting downhill as soft as he could. And of course, as a putter guy out there, and there's 15 of us on the green at the time, I'm watching this thing going, go in, you're just praying. And he hits this thing, you could read the label in the last 8 inches of the putt. And I mean, you could read the label right in the front door. All 3 of them went right in the front door. And I just went, and Nick throws up his arms and says, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And I'm going, okay, I hope this really sticks with it. He says, look, I'm not going to put it into play right now. I'm going to work with it between this FedEx St. Jude, my week off, and he says, I bet I'll putt with it at the PGA Championship. And I'm going, okay, you never know. You could never see the guy putting with it again. But Nick was so taken back by this putter. He had the zebra in his bag for the first 2 rounds of the FedEx St. Jude, and I remember what he shot. He shot 72, 66. Now normally, guy shoots 72, he'd be upset. I think he'd switch then. He shoots 66 the next day with a zebra, and then he pulls it out of the bag, and he shoots with my putter 66, 64. So he just ripped it up on the, and who was it? He missed it by 1 shot. Getting in a playoff in that tournament. Dickie Pride won the tournament by 1 shot. And Nick had a 15-footer on the last hole that he hit on the high side edge of the hole. Almost got into a playoff with him. If he got in a playoff with him, I'd hate to be seeing what happened. But anyhow, that was so much fun. What happened after that 2 weeks later was we had orders of 27,000 putters. And I was in my garage by myself with no employees and really no company. I was working in my garage. I had a lot of help from gunsmiths, machine shops, but I'm in my garage. And I put together an assembly plant. The Japanese that knew I made the putter were sending me $70,000 cashier's checks up front, and it wasn't 2 weeks later we were putting together 600 a day, and we did not miss our 15 minutes of fame. We ended up selling 90,000 putters our first year with no investors. We didn't borrow any money. We paid cash for all our machines. We had 15,000 square feet. We had 41 employees, and we had, from design inception all the way around the plant to the shipping department, all was made right there under one roof. It was really cool. That was fun.
What a story. What a fabulous story that is.
Yep, thank you.